Hey, what's up everybody? It's Pikel, and it's time for the extended video today. So we're going to go over ownership from last night. We're going to go over my rankings moving forward for this weekend, and then we're going to do my picks for all of tomorrow's matches. Actually, not my picks for all of tomorrow's matches. But I'll discuss each of tomorrow's matches briefly. How about that? Does that sound like fun? Great. Great. So, I guess we can get started with the ownership. Just updating my betting sheet. We might as well start with that, I guess. Getting some people messaging me. So I picked Vichy Gaming there. I lost. I won with JDG, and then I won both. Or I made both of the other ones. I got the other ones correct. So those were the games from yesterday. Let me get the odds up for tomorrow's stuff just real quick. Okay, so let's take a look at the ownership for every individual team. So this is the actual ownership. This is the difference between the ownership and the implied ownership that I had. So most of these are going to be within a few percentage points, I think. There are a lot of players that didn't play, so theirs is going to be way off. But let's just go team by team and kind of get an idea of what happened last night. So, Afrika Freaks against Damwon Gaming. I think that Afrika Freaks was considered a live dog against Damwon, but a lot of people apparently wanted to play pieces of Damwon. Maybe this isn't the best way to do it. Because the highest owned team... We can do it by actual, I guess, because like this just shows that there weren't many players that were rostered. So Spirit, for example, was the jungler for Afrika Freaks that was supposed to have 15% ownership. It had 5% ownership. There were a lot of better junglers on the slate, so I don't really think that's very surprising. The team position was pretty accurate. Top and support were pretty accurate. It's easier to justify using those positions because it can fit into a secondary stack very easily. With the 80 carry was right about what we would expect. So people who were thinking that Damwon Gaming would have would give up the upset, you're going to get access to Mystic. I think with Spirit and Fly, the reason why they were much further away from the implied ownership is because people liked other players from that position much more. So jungle and mid lane were both kind of stacked last night, which I mentioned during my stream. I stream every night roughly between 10 to 11 o'clock Eastern, and then I stream for like between 1 to 3 hours normally. But that's basically that. Damwon Gaming's implied ownership should have been around 16% based off of the money line for the support top end team. So Beryl was very highly owned at 27%. So basically every time that Ghost was in a lineup, Beryl was in a lineup, which isn't very surprising. I think that's a lot of stacks were probably like that. I think you could do a lot of good Damwon Gaming stacks with teams like JDG and stuff like that. So not very surprised by those numbers being so high. I did like the matchup for Damwon Gaming more and more as I did research last night. But one interesting thing to note is that based off of the implied win rate, Canyon and Ghost went under-owned. So that means players liked other matchups better, which is not very surprising because this was thought to be one of the matches with a live dog. FPX, on the other hand, was not thought to be in a spot where they were playing against a live dog. This is surprising to me. So we had the mid jungle and AD carry. They were all pretty significantly under-owned compared to their implied win rate. Part of that had to do with salary. During the stream, we went over the sheet and we saw that FPX and T1 were going to be difficult to stack with the carries because the pricing was prohibitive unless you stack them with favorites or underdogs. I mean, so the secondary stack was right on target, but the primary stack, the pieces that you would normally use in a primary stack, were under-owned, and I think that's probably the justification for that. FPX ended up losing anyways, so those lineups were basically dead. Going into that matchup, I said continuously on different videos yesterday that I thought FPX and Vichy had the chance to go under regardless of the outcome because of the styles of the two teams, and I thought that the scoring environment wouldn't be the best, and I'm pretty sure that was accurate. iBoy only scored 83.5 in the captain slot. LWX scored 75. Doinb scored 74. So those aren't great scores. Obviously, it's different because it was a 2-1 and a loss for FPX. But the last match specifically was very low scoring. LGD against JDG. So again, we were pretty accurate with the secondary stack. I think that's generally how people get access to underdogs, is by using them as the secondary stacks. Because you don't feel like you're giving up as much upside. You're just looking to pair them with you're looking to pair your primary stack with a winner. So these three spots went under-owned, and I think that's because the perception was that JDG was a bigger favorite than the implied win rate would suggest. So I'm not really too surprised by that. Okay, now we're on Solhewan Prince against T1. So all of the implied win rates are very low because they were like plus some ridiculous number. They were like plus 800 or something. T1 was minus 1800 on some books. So I do expect all of these to go under because there's the perception that they have no chance to win, which is fine. I didn't think they had a chance to win at all. The only thing I was afraid of last night was T1 subbing out players, but they didn't do that. They had a pretty good night overall. They didn't have the extremely high ceiling because the second game they kind of took their foot off the gas and just coasted to a pretty easy victory. This is something that I'm pretty happy about. So I played a lot of T1 yesterday. It didn't ultimately get there, but I think that the process was correct. So the secondary stack, again, was very accurate. But the primary players were the ones that I was pretty high on. So I thought that Teddy had a high upside potential against Solhewan Prince in these high scoring matches. Faker, I thought, had a very high ceiling. I think that the implied win rate could justify being as high as 41%. So basically, if T1 was the best favorite on the slate, I would expect this number to be basically met, and then everything else adjusted from there. So we can kind of we can look at that based off of this. So like JDG was pretty accurate in terms of the implied win rate for the primary stack. So when the money line is really big, the money line that feels the most accurate with good upside for DraftKings is going to be relatively close to the implied win rate on a 4-game slate. So I think that our numbers are pretty accurate, identifying the ownership for the favorite and the underdogs. But there are some adjustments you need to make based on like game theory. Like, I mean that might sound kind of vague, but that's just the truth. So Teddy went a little under-owned, but was still highly owned. Faker went significantly under-owned, actually. So he was 10% less than Teddy. And I get that because the perception is that Faker is not the primary carry on the team anymore, and I think that's accurate, but he does have this high upside, especially in a matchup against Mickey. So I think Faker was a sharp play last night. Cuz was the sharpest play last night, in my opinion. I thought that in this spot there was uncertainty around the jungle matchup, but I stayed up until the rosters were released, and I ended up playing Cuz. Cuz was the second highest scoring jungler on the slate, I believe, and would have been the highest if Canyon didn't go off in the last match. I had a shot at another ticket, but it just didn't hold on. Vichy Gaming was pretty close. They were thought of as a live dog by a lot of people, I think. But even though they were a live dog, the ownership was all the ownership specifically in the jungle because of the substitute risk, which ended up materializing, and then the other positions were pretty accurate. So since they were very low underdog, it was an easy spot for people to get contrarian, get some underdogs into their lineups. Vichy Gaming was trending in the right direction. You had some things going. In favor of that. Just had somebody asking about the contest. We'll deal with that later. So yeah, this is the ownership from yesterday. Let's take a look at the matches for tomorrow. So we should have China, Korea. Oh, I guess Europe isn't playing tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to have 2 matches in China, 2 matches in Korea, and 2 matches in North America. Yeah. So these are normally the lines that I look at first. This is a website that aggregates different money lines. So first up we have OMG and Bilibili Gaming. Their roster has been released already. So OMG against Bilibili Gaming. We have Curse, Hacker, Icon, SMLZ Cold against Kingen, Meteor, Fofo, Wings, and Zinmo or Shinmo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. This is basically a 50-50 with OMG and Bilibili Gaming. That's not that surprising to me. I think if you looked at the if you looked at the match history for both of these teams, OMG has had a better match history in my opinion in terms of how they've looked. But Bilibili Gaming, everybody's pretty high on them because Meteor has apparently been a gigantic upgrade in the jungle. Next match, we have Invictus Gaming against E-Star. We have The Shy, Ning, Rookie, Puff, and Baolan against Xiaobai, Wei, Fun, Wink, and Xiaoxi. So I'm afraid, obviously, of playing the support from Invictus Gaming because if they drop one of the matches, there's always the chance of Reheal or Southwind coming in. Probably Southwind. In this matchup against Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi, even though I like to give the analysts and casters garbage about how like insane they are when they say like, oh, Xiaoxi on Hook Champions is so good, there is some truth to it. So it could be a more volatile matchup, and that might even increase the chances of Baolan or the the support in general being substituted. So Xiaobai, Wei, Fun, Wink, and Xiaoxi. Invictus Gaming is the bigger and more trustworthy favorite on the Korean slate, obviously. Okay. So I just got the green light from DK Assist to share a contest link. I thought that they like didn't allow that kind of stuff for some reason. So I'm gonna invite. Creating. I don't know if I should put it out to everybody. I guess so. Most people aren't gonna like reshare it, I guess. Creating a league for daily law contests specifically for viewers and followers. Contest will be reviewed daily in my Esports Center videos. One sec, I gotta respond to a comment. So for anybody watching this video, if you go to my Twitter, I just posted a link to my league. If you want to play in a $1 winner-take-all contest today, stop on by. We'll be posting some contests in there that we can kind of review. Yeah. Next up, in Korea, we have Team Dynamics against Gen G. Gen G is a minus 475 favorite against Team Dynamics. KT Rolster is a minus 200 favorite over Sandbox. The last time we saw Team Dynamics, they lost, I believe. The last time we saw Gen G, I think they won. Gen G is definitely thought of as the better team. I don't think there's any value on that line. I think Team Dynamics does have some chances to get a game off of them. Pretty difficult seeing them win, though. KT Rolster against Sandbox. This is interesting. I know a lot of people will be on Sandbox because of Yamato Cannon and the boost that he has seemingly given his team. But KT Rolster looked really good against DRX. I guess it does kind of seem like a fishy spot for KT Rolster. Like, beating DRX, this could be a letdown spot where like they're not as good as they looked against DRX, but there was something specific about the matchup and the pick bans that gave them the additional edge they needed to be competitive against DRX. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, let's go to North America. In North America, we have Immortals and Dignitas. Immortals is a minus 200 favorite against Dignitas. Immortals' new roster has looked better. If Dignitas is going to win a match, might as well be against Immortals. Immortals does kind of have the better players, though, which is funny to say. But with their new roster, you can have a lot more confidence in that side of things. I don't think it's minus 200 to 163 though. So if I was going to place a real life bet on this, I would most likely bet on Dignitas. I'm not sure what side I'm going to pick. FlyQuest against 100 Thieves. This number seems pretty big. I know that 100 Thieves has made some roster changes. Maybe this is a spot where they can actually show that their changes are going to have a long-lasting impact. But tough to see 100 Thieves winning that match tonight. So next we are going to do the rankings. So let me get Gamepedia on the screen. Basically what I'm going to do is very similar to Chris Harris, the fantasy football expert. He basically compares every player when he's doing his like rankings. So he'll do every single player against one another and say which one do I like more, and then he'll rank them accordingly. So what I'm going to do is put all of the teams on the screen, starting in the lowest division, the lowest league, which in my opinion is North America. So let me do this. Harris ranking. The quote-unquote Harris ranking. So we're going to start down here at the 48 spot because that's eventually where we're going to end up. I can get a little closer in there. So basically what I'm going to do is start with the team in last place in the LCS, and I'm going to rank them based on how talented I think the team is. So this is one spot where I disagree with what ESPN does. ESPN has like some kind of qualification where they're saying which teams are likely to make it to certain steps in like the World Championship, which is kind of weird. I think it's better to just stack teams up based on talent, and then if those two teams played against each other, you would be able to use that power ranking to make a decision on which team you thought was better. I'll also try to break this up into tiers. So if I think there is a significant difference between teams, it'll be more apparent. So first up, in last place right now is Dignitas. So for Dignitas, we have Lorlo, Dardoch, Phoenix, Johnson, and Afromu. They do, and I guess JJ is also on their roster. They switch it up relatively often. They've been making changes. I'm not sure who is starting for them this week. That roster uncertainty is a negative for me. And I think right now they are probably they're certainly one of the 4 worst. They're certainly one of the 2 worst teams in North America. So we'll have Dignitas ranked here for now. Oh. I guess I should have had it like that. Okay, so the 47th ranked team is Dignitas. So let's compare Dignitas to Immortals. Like I said, I think that Immortals has a better roster. So if you think about Alorum compared to Lorlo, they're pretty even. If you think of Xmithy compared with Dardoch, I think Dardoch has the higher upside, but I mean, we've been talking about Dardoch's upside for a long time. He's more likely to carry a game. Xmithy is more likely to make his team win a game, like soft touch versus hard touch. Like Xmithy can kind of manipulate the map, respond to ganks very well, shot call very well. So I think Xmithy does have the higher impact on real life than in DraftKings. If it was a DraftKings choice, I'd probably take Dardoch over Xmithy. In the mid lane, we have Insanity against Phoenix and Froggen. I don't know much about Insanity. It's tough to say that he's better or worse than either of the mid laners for Dignitas because we don't have a ton of information on him. At least I don't. In the bot lane, we have Altec and Hakuho, or Apollo and Hakuho against Johnson and Afromu. I think Afromu is still playing. Not sure if they've switched their roster again. So, can I justify Immortals being higher ranked than Dignitas? If they played each other, do I really want to pick Immortals over Dignitas? If they played a game tomorrow, I think you kind of have to give it to Xmithy and Immortals. Next up, 100 Thieves will try to be faster. Someday contracts Ryoma, Cody Sun, and Poom. I do think that they are better than Dignitas, and I'm higher on 100 Thieves in like terms of their future prospects than I am for right now. So I'm fine leaving them down here. We'll probably have to switch some of these teams around when we get to other leagues. Golden Guardians, Haunter, Closer, Demonte, FBI, and Huhi. I think that they're much better than the three teams that we've already discussed. I know that Immortals is kind of trending in the right direction, and some people might want to put Immortals higher, but I still think that Golden Guardians roster has more talent, so I'll stick with them. Counterlogic Gaming, we have Ruin, Wiggly, Pobelter, Stixay, and Smoothie against Golden Guardians, which is Haunter, Closer, Demonte, FBI, and Huhi. So this is more dependent on how the meta is going to go. I think they're very even. I can't rank them in the same spot though, so I would take Golden Guardians over CLG, personally. So we'll put CLG there. Next up is FlyQuest. I like FlyQuest more than all these teams, certainly. Evil Geniuses. I like Evil Geniuses more than Dignitas, Immortals, 100 Thieves, all these teams, 100%. TSM versus Evil Geniuses. Personally, I think that Evil Geniuses has the higher upside. I think that TSM... Now we're getting into a spot where we're kind of splitting hairs. I think that Team Liquid is below all of them, and I think C9 is the best team in the league right now. In terms of what I expect to happen for the rest of this season, I kind of do expect it to be C9, EG, TSM, and Team Liquid in the quarterfinals, unless the playoffs, unless the bracket kind of dictates it going a different direction. Got to be careful how you say that. All right, so I think that's a good starting point. These might be adjusted a little bit as we start taking other teams into consideration. Let's put the date on here. All right, so this is where it gets interesting. So now we're going across league. I'm gonna do this mostly based off of who I think would win in a match, straight up. So right now we have FC Schalke with Aduamne, Gilius, Lurox, Abadage, Inox, Neon, Dreams, and Nukes. All of those players have played at different points in this season. I am not a huge fan of roster uncertainty, and for that reason, they're definitely going to be very low in these rankings, but I still think that those players have more long-term upside than the players on Dignitas outside of maybe Johnson. But I don't see Schalke beating a team like Immortals. Like, if it was a best of 3, I would pick Immortals over Schalke to win a match tomorrow. The long-term prospects for Schalke is probably better than Immortals, but, you know, just based on talent alone right now, I think that's kind of what we have to go with. Next up, we have Team Vitality. So Cabochard, Enjai, Milica, Comp, and Jack Troll. So they're not going to get very high in North America, but I think they could beat everyone going up to 100 Thieves. So we'll throw Vitality in there. Actually, maybe we should do it like this, so it's a little more broken out and obvious. Okay, that looks pretty good. So Vitality against CLG. Vitality is probably better than CLG. Vitality against Golden Guardians is very close. Vitality does have some good wins. So Vitality has beaten G2, Origin, and SK. I think I'm okay putting them above Golden Guardians right now. Let's go to the next team. SK Gaming. SK Gaming has looked pretty good. I don't think that they're good compared to the other teams in Europe, but I think if you took them and placed them in North America, they would still be right around this area. But who do I like more, SK Gaming or Vitality? Genax against Cabochard, I prefer Genax at this point. Trick against Enjai. I still like Trick a lot. I think this is a good meta for him. Set is still pretty broken, I guess, and there's something about Set jungle that really resonates with that team. They can flex it between top. They can flex Volibear between top and jungle as well, so that's pretty flexible in that respect. I think that they've looked their highest highs have looked better than Vitality. They also picked up a win over Misfits and Origin. Pretty similar though. They are pretty similar. I don't think that SK Gaming is significantly better than than Vitality, but I do think that they are better when it's all said and done. So now we're getting into an interesting spot because I'm going to have a pretty different opinion on these teams than what the rankings are showing, I think. Origin, since they've lost their coach, has looked pretty shaky. They lost against Excel. That was a horrible match. Or they beat Excel. Who was I thinking of? They beat Excel. I think they lost to Vitality and looked horrible. Or SK. And Rogue, actually. Rogue was the game that they looked the worst. So they beat Excel. They beat Schalke. They beat Fnatic. They beat G2. Lost to Mad Lions, lost to Misfits, those are fine, lost to Rogue. It's okay to lose to Rogue. It's not okay to lose to Rogue the way that they did. That was, like, shockingly bad. Colin Morikawa going off, 8 under. Just saying. I've got him in my roster. No big deal. Origin against FlyQuest. I think that I prefer Origin to FlyQuest because they are a better macro team. But that would be pretty close. I think a lot of players, a lot of people would want to make the argument that some of these other teams around Origin are actually better than Origin, but I still believe in their success in the past, their ability to play the macro game. That is kind of a big difference maker for me. Let's do XL next because I'm definitely going to have Fnatic higher. So XL has beaten Schalke, beaten G2, beaten SK, beaten Vitality. They lost to most of the good competition. I think that's not very surprising. I would definitely place them underneath FlyQuest. In terms of XL versus SK and Vitality, they beat both of those teams, but I'm not convinced they're better than those teams. I think it's kind of just a clump situation. So these three teams, I like, they're all performing better than we expected them to, but that's all I can really say for now. Fnatic. Like, it's funny with Fnatic. I don't like Nemesis. I don't like his playstyle. It's not that I don't like Nemesis. I don't like his playstyle. I think that the whole Twisted Fate thing, they're kind of forcing it too much right now. That's more of a coaching issue probably than it is a Nemesis issue. I'm sure there are other champions that he can play. But he's been very bad from a DraftKings perspective. It is kind of scary. I love Bwipo. I think Bwipo is probably the first or second best top laner in the league. Selfmade is a pretty good jungler, but he's kind of top middle of the pack, or if not middle of the pack. Nemesis is middle of the pack. Reckless is one of the 3 best AD carries in my opinion, and then Hylissang is a very good real-life support, but not necessarily a great support for DraftKings. So I do think that Fnatic is better than Origin. I do think that they're better than Excel. I think Fnatic is better than Misfits as well. So let's put Misfits. I'm going to finish off the LEC rankings before I start blending them into North America. So, Misfits. Oh man, it's tough. I still think that Fnatic and G2 are better than Rogue and Mad Lions. If the playoffs were starting tomorrow and they were playing against each other, I would pick Fnatic or Origin over both of those teams. I'm just a believer in long-term class. Yikes. So let's do it the reverse order. I think G2 is still the best team in the league. I think that Mad Lions is better than Rogue. So it's a question of can I convince myself to put Rogue higher than Fnatic? Finn against Bwipo, I prefer Bwipo. Inspired against Selfmade, that's pretty close. I think Inspired has had a better season. I don't think he's necessarily a better player. Larson against Nemesis, I prefer Larson's playstyle and his champion pool. Han Sama against Reckless, I think that's even. And then Vander against Hylissang, I think that is Hylissang favored. Yeah, I gotta put Fnatic higher than them. Fnatic against Mad. I am higher on Mad than I am on Rogue. So I think I'll leave it like this for now. All right, so let's start blending it in. Origin against Team Liquid. That's a pretty tough one. I'll leave it like this for now. Misfits against Team Liquid. So we have Dan against Impact. I prefer Impact. I think that's pretty fair. Broxa against Razork. I prefer Broxa. I think that's pretty fair. Broxa was considered one of the best junglers in Europe when he was there. Fabivin against Jensen. I think Fabivin's a better player than Jensen. Kabe against Tactical. I think Kabe is a better player. And then Denik against Core JJ. I think Core JJ is a better player. So I do think Team Liquid is how do I prioritize this though? Broxa is better, but the carries are better from Misfits. I think I still prefer Team Liquid in that situation. But this is very close. I think that Origin and above would be a very fun competition to watch against FlyQuest and above. So like if you picked 5 of these teams and 5 teams from Europe, I think it would be pretty interesting to watch. Team Liquid against Rogue. So let's do it again. Impact against Finn. I prefer Impact. Inspired against Broxa. I prefer Broxa. Larson against Jensen. I prefer Larson. Hansama against Tactical. I prefer Hansama. So I would go with Rogue. I would go with Rogue there. Rogue against TSM. Broken Blade. I prefer Broken Blade. Inspired against Spica. That's even. I don't think that you can really say from this season which player is going to have a better career overall. Bjergsen against Larson. That's honestly pretty close. I do prefer Bjergsen though. Hansama against Doublelift. I think I prefer Hansama at this point. He has a more explosive playstyle, and I think right now that's very good for 80 carries. And then Vander against Biofrost I think is pretty even. Biofrost will be a better player for a longer period. Will play for a longer period of time than Vander, but right now Vander's playing very well. So I would take Rogue over TSM. So we'll drop that down. Rogue against Evil Geniuses. So we have Kuro against Finn. I think that's basically even. Inspired against Svenskeren. I think I prefer Svenskeren still at this point in his career. I think that if he went to Europe, he would be one of the best junglers there. Larson against Jizuke. I think I prefer Jizuke. I think from a playstyle perspective, he's just better. Bang against Hansama. I think it's basically even. I think Hansama has played very well this split, and Bang has been a great carry on great teams, but he hasn't really shown the ability to elevate his team's level to a world-class team yet, because they're still having trouble in North America. I do expect Evil Geniuses to make it to Worlds, and at that point, they could really try to prove themselves. And then Vander against Zeyzal, I think, is even. So I'm going to leave Evil Geniuses above Rogue. I would also take Evil Geniuses above Fnatic. I think you kind of have to take Mad Lions over Evil Geniuses. I would take Cloud9 over Mad Lions, though. So Licorice against Arome, I think Licorice is much better than Arome. Blabber against Shadow, I think Blabber is much better than Shadow. Niski against Humanoid, I think is fairly even. Sven against Karzi, I think Sven's a better player. If Sven was in Europe right now, he would be considered a top 380 carry. And then Kaiser, who's had a very good season, against Vulcan. I think Vulcan's a better player. But that's actually pretty close. I think Vulcan is a little overpopular. I think Vulcan's skill level is overstated. I'll put it that way. Very good player. Don't get me wrong. Very good player. But is he one of the 5 best supports in the world? Probably not. 1 second. All right. And then C9 against G2. So this is going to come down to talent for me. Licorice against Wonder. I think that's fairly even. I think Wonder has shown he's kind of a chameleon in the top lane. He can kind of play anything. Yonkos against Blabber. I think right now Blabber's the better player. Caps against Niski. I think Caps is the better player. Perks against Ven. I think Perks is the better player. Mickey against Vulcan. I think that's very even. So I'm fine with having G2 first overall. I just think the talent is like overwhelming from G2. I know that they haven't looked good this split, but I cannot convince myself to keep them out of the top spot in Europe. Like, if I made a bet on who was going to win the summer split, it would still be G2. I'm sure that they're still the favorite at sportsbooks. I haven't looked at that line. All right. All right, so now it's time to go to LCK. And this is where you're going to see a big difference between myself and ESPN, I would assume. We'll do that comparison at the end. But let's just go through this relatively quick. Hanwha Life is the worst team in Korea right now. I think that is... I think that's relatively clear at this point. I think Hanwha Life against Seoul Haewon Prince is very close, so let's just compare them for the sake of comparing. Dudu and Cat have looked horrible. I would take Ixu and Flawless over them in a heartbeat. I think long-term, Dudu and Cad will be better than Ixu and Flawless, but right now I can't take them. Mickey against Lava and Miru. I would prefer Mickey easily. I think Mickey's definitely better than them. Viper and Lehens against Trigger and Mia. Or Hybrid and Secret, I think, have been playing more often. Either way, I like Hanwha Life's bot lane better. So it's going to come down... These two teams are very close. I would just say that in order to figure out which team I would pick in a head-to-head matchup, it would depend on the patch. So we'll throw Hanwha Life and Seoul Haewon Prince down here. I think Sandbox at this point has proven that they're better than both of those teams. If I was going based off of talent, I think Summit is better than basically any player on Seoul Haewon Prince. On Fleek, probably the same. So that's fine. KT Rolster. If we get the KT Rolster we saw against... if we see the KT Rolster we saw against DRX with that roster and that kind of play style where they're allowing Smeb to play support, I think that I like them better than Dynamics instantly. So we'll put it like that. A Freak of Freaks against KT. That's a very good question. That one's very close. Sowan looked amazing in their last match, but Keen is still better than any top laner that KT Rolster has. Spirit against Bono. Bono looked good, but Spirit is just as good as him. There, that's an even one. UCal is better than Fly and All In. Aiming is better than Mystic in my opinion, and then I mean I guess it's Smeb as support against Ben. That's a question mark. So I would put KT above a Freak of Freaks right now as well. I think that's relatively fair. KT against Gen.G. I gotta take Gen.G. Gen.G has been very consistent. Gen.G against T1, I'll take D1. DRX against T1, I'll take T1. Damwon Gaming against T1. If it was a head-to-head matchup, I would take Damwon Gaming, but that's only because I think there's something about their styles that clash and prefer Damwon Gaming. I would still take DRX over Damwon Gaming, and I prefer Damwon Gaming over Gen.G. I feel like they played, right? Yeah, so Damwon Gaming lost to Gen.G, but I think that overall talent-wise, I think Damwon Gaming is the better player. They're like playing really well right now, and I think that they are only going to go up from here. I would be surprised if they didn't make it to Worlds at this point, just based off of talent alone. So let's start comparing this to Europe, and we're going to do it in the reverse. So we're going to start up here, and we're going to go down. So Solhaewon, Prince, and Hanwha Life, I think of them as the same, very similar team. I think that if these two teams were playing against this competition, I would probably prefer the Korean teams, but I would probably just prefer the Korean teams. You can say whatever you want about that. I just think from a talent perspective, I don't know how you could justify saying that these European teams are better. I think Viper and Lehens are better than any player on these three teams. I think these teams would be able to give them a run for their money if they went head-to-head. But they've just looked so bad. Hanwha Life and Solhaewon Prince. I think there are weaknesses to exploit. They'd be fun matches to watch. I don't think they're going to be blowouts by any means, but I think this is kind of where I would have to leave it. Sandbox. I think Sandbox is... I think Sandbox is also better than XL, SK, and Vitality. I think that I have to put Sandbox above FlyQuest. So Sandbox against FlyQuest. We have Solo against Summit. I think that would be a big advantage to Summit. On Fleek against Santorin. I think that On Fleek is a better player than Santorin head-to-head. Fate against Power of Evil. I'm a very big Power of Evil fan. I think the whole is greater than the sum of its parts for FlyQuest. If we were doing talent position by position, I think I prefer Sandbox. Leo and Root against Wild Turtle or Mash. That's an easy one. That's definitely Sandbox. And then Gorilla against Ignar. Gorilla is a better player than Ignar because of his previous history. So at this point, if he's on his decline, maybe Ignar is just as good, if not better. That would be a very fun match to watch. Origin against Sandbox. I think Origin would find a way to play the macro game better than Sandbox. They have looked. Origin has looked bad, but they're not as bad as their record. Same thing with Misfits. So I'm fine with this. I think that this is relatively fair, and it still gives some credit to Europe. But Sandbox has also had points where they've looked very bad. Team Dynamics against Origin and FlyQuest, or Origin and Misfits. I do think I still prefer Misfits and Origin. A Freak of Freaks versus Rogue. A Freak of Freaks versus Fnatic. I mean, this is where it gets tough. I think I prefer the teams from Korea more than all of these teams down here. Wait, switch you go. A Freak of Freaks against Mad Lions. So let's do that. So Keen against Arome. Keen is a better player. Spirit against Shadow. Shadows are probably a better player. Fly against Humanoid. Tough to compare. I would say just based off of regional strength in general, I would probably give the benefit to Fly. But it's tough to say without seeing them play against one another. Mystic and Ben against Karzi and Kaiser. I think that might actually be an advantage for Mad Lions. So maybe I can just barely convince myself to like Mad Lions more than them. Mad Lions against KT Rolster. If KT Rolster was a KT Rolster that beat DRX, and that's like a consistent thing from now on, I think that KT Rolster will be better than Mad Lions, but for now I'm willing to leave it like this. I think Genji, Damwon Gaming, DRX, and T1 are all better than Mad Lions right now. You can make the argument that right now Mad Lions is on better form than those other teams, but you can't tell me that they're more talented. I just don't think that's true. Based on the eye test, based on regional strength, based on the opponents that they have to play against and compete against, I think that this is accurate. So now C9 against Genji. I think Genji is better than them. If we're looking at the roster, so Licorice versus Rascal, probably very close. Clid against Blabber, I think Clid is the better player. BDD against Niski, I think BDD is the better player. Ruler against Ven, I think Ruler is the better player. And then Kellen or Life against Vulcan. That could be close. But I think Genji is better than C9. And again, that's not based off of recent form or record. It's if these two teams played against each other, who do I think would actually win the matchup? Okay, so G2 against T1. G2 has beaten T1, but I think T1 is a better team than them. G2 against DRX. I think DRX is a better team than them. G2 against Damwon would be pretty interesting. So Wonder against Nagri. I think Nagri has the advantage. Canyon against Yonkos. That's pretty close. Showmaker against Caps. I think Showmaker is the better player. No question. Perks against Ghost. I think Perks has a better carry upside than Ghost. And then Beryl against Mickey. I love Beryl's playstyle. I'm going to give the edge to Beryl. But for that reason, I think this is extremely close. G2 and Damwon Gaming. So that's it for Korea. Now we have 17 teams from China to throw into here. So this is kind of where it's going to get tough. And we've discussed this in the past, how I think that China is probably the best league in the world right now. So let's just take the Chinese team and try to put it somewhere in this ranking that I think is fair. So if Dignitas versus Rogue Warriors, I think Rogue Warriors wins. Rogue Warriors against Schalke. Rogue Warriors would beat Immortals. Rogue Warriors would beat 100 Thieves. Rogue Warriors would beat CLG. Rogue Warriors would beat Golden Guardians. Rogue Warriors would beat Vitality. Rogue Warriors would beat SK. Rogue Warriors would beat XL. Rogue Warriors would beat Hanwha Life. Rogue Warriors would beat SP. Rogue Warriors would beat FlyQuest. Rogue Warriors would beat Sandbox. Rogue Warriors against Dynamics is kind of where it gets close for me. So we'll throw in Rogue Warriors. Dominus. Do I think Dominus is better than all of these teams? Because I think that Dominus is not as good as Rogue Warriors. So Dominus would have to be lower. Dominus. Yes. I think this is the spot for them. And again, we'll probably have to switch this up a little bit. LNG, they've been competitive against some of the best teams in the world. You have to give them credit for that. It is hot in this room right now. So LNG, they've shown that they can beat FPX. I think they can handle a couple teams from Europe and North America. So So LNG. They should beat Solhewan Prince. They should beat them. They should beat them. LNG against Rogue Warriors. I probably prefer Rogue Warriors. And that's from a talent perspective. I think LNG definitely has the better... they do have the better record. They've had the better performances so far this split. But I just like the talent of Rogue Warriors. E-Star... I'm not a huge E-Star fan. I think E-Star is better than LNG, though. Billy Gaming, especially now that they have Meteor, I think that they're better than Rogue Warriors. That'll be a match to watch out for. EDG. EDG's talent is on another level. EDG is better than Dynamics. BLG might even be better than Dynamics. BLG against Origin. I think that's where we can kind of leave it. EDG is better than Origin. EDG is better than Misfits. Better than Team Liquid. Better than TSM. I personally do think that EDG is better than Rogue. I think if they played, I would make a bet on EDG as long as the line was reasonable. But for this, I'll leave it right here because you can't put everybody above these teams from across the world. OMG, I don't think OMG is as good as these teams right here. OMG versus Billy Gaming. I think that Billy Gaming is probably a little better than them. But we're going to see that matchup tonight. So that's very interesting. I think from a game theory perspective, I might actually be on OMG tonight. But I do think BLG is going to be the better team long term. RNG, I think that RNG is right around here with EDG. And again, like I think that the talent is better than the European teams, but everyone's going to try to kill me if I don't do this. Vichy Gaming, I think that EDG and RNG are both better than Vichy Gaming. I know Vichy Gaming just beat FPX, and that's why I can justify putting them above TSM and Team Liquid. But like I said, this is kind of a question mark for me right now. FPX is better than almost all of these teams. I would put FPX way up here. FPX. So we'll come to that later. Invictus Gaming. I think Invictus Gaming is all the way up here. Sunning is interesting. I think there's still a lot of question marks about Sunning. Sunning, World Elite, and V5 I think are kind of clustered together. I kind of think that EDG and RNG deserve to be right around there as well. So KT versus V5, I'd probably take V5. KT against EDG, I'd probably take EDG. KT against RNG, I'd probably take RNG. So let's do this. So the question becomes, how do these teams from China compare to Europe? If Mad Lions played against RNG or EDG, I don't know if I could pick them. Let's get the rest of the teams on the list though. World Elite, JDG. I think JDG is not as good as Invictus Gaming. That's pretty close though. And then Top Esports is the best team in China right now. I think we could justify doing this. Nah, I like Invictus Gaming more. I'm not going to lie to myself. V5, I think I could do it like that. So EDG against Mad Lions. I think all these teams are better than Mad Lions. I just do. like, Mad Lions is a lesser version of C9 and G2. So stylistically, I just think that C9 and G2 do it better than Mad Lions. And I think C9 and G2 play a kind of Chinese style. Some of these Chinese teams don't play a quote-unquote traditional Chinese style, though. Like, I do think that there is a break here, so I will put Mad Lions in this tier. I think this is a tier. Actually, I should do it like this. I think these are the best teams in the world right now. So let's do this. Let's give Mad Lions a little bit more credit for their performance so far this season. I think right around there is fair. C9, Genji. Genji against JDG. I probably prefer... Rascal against Zoom, I prefer Zoom. Kanavi against Klid, I think is very, very close. BDD against Yagao, I prefer BDD. Ruler against Loken, I prefer Ruler. And then Kellen or Life against Lumao, I think is a toss-up. Invictus Gaming against Genji. I think the upside of Invictus Gaming is higher than them. So I'm fine leaving it like that. Invictus versus Damwon Gaming. I think Damwon Gaming is more like Invictus Gaming than we would like to admit so far. I think I like Invictus Gaming more than them. I like Invictus Gaming more than G2. I think just from a talent perspective, they would be able to beat G2's playstyle. IG against DRX. I think DRX is too consistent. Too consistent for them. Am I missing a team? Soning, Vichy, LGD. I'm missing LGD. LGD. We'll give Mad Lions a pass on LGD. But again, this is a tier right here. I would need to see these teams play to feel justified. Invictus Gaming. Okay, them as the 5th team in the world right now I think is fair. DRX against FPX. I think DRX has looked better this split. FPX has some questionable losses. So let's do it like this. Alright, so let's go from top to bottom, and you can kind of let me know in the comments where you think I've made a mistake, where I haven't made a mistake. I'm going to break this down into world class versus contenders versus the Mad Lions tier versus like regional powerhouses and stuff like that. So I think that the 5 teams that like have really proven they have an actual chance to win. Damwon Gaming versus G2. I think Damwon Gaming is better than G2. Damwon Gaming against Invictus Gaming. I think I'm just biased towards Invictus Gaming. Nogri against the Shy is a very explosive matchup. Ning against Canyon. I think Ning is a better player. Rookie against Showmaker. That's a very close matchup. I think Showmaker has looked better. Puff against Ghost. I think Damwon Gaming has an advantage. All right. So I think these 6 teams, I'd be surprised if the world champion didn't come from these 6 teams. We'll give them the purple for royalty. We'll give this tier, so we'll say world class Contenders, like if everything breaks their way at Worlds, I think they could be pretty good. This one is the regional Contenders, where if they are able to prove themselves on the regional level and get to the world stage, then we can talk about moving them up in the rankings. And this is obviously going to change as the season goes on and we learn more about the teams, but I think that this is pretty fair. I don't see KT or Afrika Freaks winning the split. I think Evil Geniuses could theoretically beat C9, but they're still not as good as these teams. At least they haven't proven it. Just from a talent perspective, I think I still prefer those Korean teams. Rogue, Misfits, Origin. I think this is a separate tier. These are disappointments, really. So these teams are thought of to be regional contenders, but by the end of the season, I think we'll be disappointed in their results, like not being able to contend with the best teams from their own region, let alone the better teams from around the world. BLG, OMG, Sandbox, FlyQuest. I don't have a good name for this tier, but I think there is a separation between these teams and the ones that are below it. And then these are just teams that I don't think are any good. So they don't even get a color. So let's zoom out a little bit. So we have in the first place slot, Top Esports. I think that's not controversial at all. T1 being that high up, maybe some people would have an issue with it, but I think after DRX and FPX both losing, I think it's easy to see that T1 is more consistent than both of those teams, even if they may not beat them head-to-head every single time, because that's kind of an unreasonable expectation to put on them. DRX, even after their loss to KT, I still think they're one of the best teams in the world. They've had some pretty bad drafts. That might pop up at Worlds, but I do expect DRX to get to Worlds. DRX, I think, is definitely better than Gen G, and Damwon Gaming might give them a good fight, but I think that DRX is better than them. FPX, I still believe in them. I think that they've had some questionable macro decisions. They haven't looked very clean, but there's still a lot of time left in the season for them to clean it up before the playoffs, and once they get into playoffs in these series, I'm not going to be picking against them very often. Damwon Gaming. So Damwon Gaming has shown extreme talent. It looks like they're clicking again like they did at the end of last season. Or maybe that was the season before. But it looks like they're trending in the right direction. Very good. They have some question marks about the talent of their top lane and jungle. Or of their jungle. Mostly just their jungle. So if Canyon can prove that he is a world-class player, then it's not going to be an issue. Actually, I should switch that. Because there are realistic questions about. It's funny that I clicked that the wrong way. That might have actually been a better way to do it, though. Because they're kind of right in between those two spots. Alright. Invictus Gaming. Wait. I meant to do it like this. Yeah. Okay, so because there's still questions. Invictus Gaming, not very consistent. We don't know how they're going to end up this season. I think from a talent perspective, they're better than almost everybody. G2, I still think they're the best team in Europe. It's going to take more than a bad start to the season to push me off of that. Gen G, I think they've shown that they are good at beating bad teams, but when it comes to beating good teams, not so much. Gen G against JDG, that feels wrong. I think JDG is probably better than both of those teams, but I'm not going to switch it for right now. Zoom's a very good player. Kanavi's a very good player. I'm not 100% convinced about their mid laner AD carry, but if I'm wrong, then that's going to be the explanation for why I move them up in the future. C9, I'm hopeful that they play really well at Worlds, but I can't justify putting them higher than these other teams from a talent perspective. So it'll have to come down to like actual matchups, which is why I think that it's fine leaving them in this tier. In reality, I think C9 could finish on this list somewhere between 10th and 17th, because if C9 played against EDG, I think that I should give the edge to C9, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if EDG beat them in a best of 3 or a best of 5. V5, they've looked great this season. You kind of have to give them credit. I think that there's still a lot of room for them to kind of disappoint us by playing against a lot of the top teams and faltering. They haven't had many tough matches. They lost to FPX. They haven't played Invictus, haven't played JDG, haven't played Top Esports, haven't played World Elite, haven't played Sunning. That's going to tell us a lot about them. So right now, I feel fine having them up here. This is really just a cluster. I don't have a way to really separate these teams very much. I think that there will be some very good playoff teams from this group, but I don't know. I don't know how I can really separate them in a meaningful way. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. KT and Afrika Freaks, I think that they're both trending in the right direction. KT Rolster, honestly, what they did against DRX was pretty impressive. I know that we have to be concerned that some of that could be attributed to a bad job by DRX, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to players like Smeb. I think that he'd be able to make the transition to support. That makes a lot of sense to me. Afrika Freaks, some question marks about talent, definitely. I think that their top lane and jungle are top lane is very good. Their jungle is pretty good, but I just have a lot of questions about the rest of the team, about the rest of the roster. So I'm not a huge Fly fan or Mystic. That's just it. Evil Geniuses, it'll kind of depend on how far Bang can carry them in the playoffs. I like Jizuke a lot. If they fix up their drafting issues, they could charge up these standings, I think. I would be willing to think that Jizuke and Bang and Svenskeren are able to compete on the world stage. Zazel has competed at Worlds before, I believe. So I think those 4 players with their experience would be able to at least compete in the group stage and give a good showing for North America. Not necessarily getting out of group stage, but doing okay in those matches. Fnatic and Rogue, I do prefer Evil Geniuses to both of them. Vichy Gaming, good victory last night against FPX, but I can't justify putting them in that upper echelon like EDG and above yet. I think those other teams are just better. TSM and Team Liquid, I think they're good for North America, but that's about it. Misfits and Origin, I think Misfits has some pretty good upward mobility. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Misfits make a charge for the title at the end of the season. I don't think that they end up beating G2, but if Misfits made it to the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. Origin, they've been trending in the wrong direction. They're very macro-focused. As the meta moves more towards like team fighting, I think that they could kind of salvage their season. Like through macro game and team fighting, like having predictable team fights around the objectives is going to be good for them in the long run. Nuke Duck sucks. That's all I got to say about that. BLG, OMG, Dynamics, Rogue Warriors, E-Star, LNG, Sandbox, and FlyQuest. I think that, I mean, just from a talent perspective alone, FlyQuest could be at the top of this. FlyQuest could maybe be in the disappointments tier. They do have some good talent on their team. I do like Power of Eve a lot. I like Santorin. I hate their bot lane situation. I like Ignar, but I don't like their 80 carries. I don't like their top laner to compete on a world stage. So I think that even if they made it to Worlds, they would be destroyed pretty easily by most of the teams that are there. Unless they got the easiest group ever. And then Golden Guardian, CLG, 100 Thieves, Immortals, Dignitas, XL, SK, Vitality, Schalke, Solhewan Prince, Halma-Life, and Dominus. I think all of these teams are already dead, basically, from a season perspective. I don't see any of them actually competing in playoffs, or making it to Worlds, or doing well if they make it to Worlds. So, that's it for this video. I know it's a lot of information to consume, about an hour long, but, you know, we went through ownership, we went through the rankings, we went through some other stuff. So yeah, I know it takes a decent amount of time, but I know if I'm going to, like, be critical of ESPN, that I have to kind of release my own rankings and give my justifications for how I rank teams. And then moving forward, I think this is a good starting point. I'll keep track of it week to week. I'll try to do it every Thursday before the weekend matches where everything kind of goes insane. And then reevaluate on Monday when ESPN has their rankings, or Tuesday when they have their rankings. So I think we'll probably get 2 rankings videos a week. my list is not going to fluctuate as wildly as ESPN's does, because that's just not how I look at things. I think of it more of a talent perspective. If I have fundamental changes in my opinion about somebody's talent, I reserve the right to do whatever I want with the rankings, obviously. But for the most part, I think talent and class is pretty constant. So thanks for watching. Make sure you check out my Twitter for the link to the league where I'm running contests for my followers, for everybody that watches on YouTube, follows me on Twitter. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll try to have some good contests, a couple of winner-take-alls where it's like you risk $1, you can win $50, something like that. That'll be fun. I'll review those on my stream. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. If you cannot wait until tomorrow, come check out the stream 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. But yeah, I'll see you later.